What did you expect to happen? Like Friday, when you're in Happy Valley and Michigan's coming in, did you think Jim Harbaugh was coaching on Saturday?
Uh, well, initially when I woke up, I did until Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, had suspended him for the rest of the regular season. And then we kind of got word that Michigan understood this was going to happen. And because of that, they were going to file a TRO and try to create an injunction, which I'm no legal expert, so I'm not going to dive into that. But just from being a player during the lockout back after 2010, 2011, I knew enough to know that well, this is a holiday weekend. We're supporting our veterans, honoring our veterans, and typically, courts don't rule very fast on this. So if they think they're going to be able to get an injunction, it's probably not going to happen in time for this game. Maybe sometime next week. But I think the crazy thing, DP, was I've never gone into like a studio show, and you could probably admit to this too. Like 80-90% of what you prepare for probably goes into the show. When we got up Saturday morning, we had to prepare for like so many different scenarios. I mean, we were honestly waiting for like Jim Harbaugh just to walk out onto the field. And the athletic director at Penn State, Pat Kraft, said he wasn't going to get in the way of it. We were like fully prepared for like what's going to happen in that moment. Like, do we have a live camera on his hotel room? Like as he walks out and gets into the car to drive to the stadium there, and everyone's booing him, he's looking like the villain. Like I was picturing a WWE type entrance there in Happy Valley. It unfortunately didn't happen, but that was some of the greatest drama I've ever seen when it comes to a college football game, at least the preparation for it.
Let's look at the Big Ten side of this. What exactly are they doing? What do they have to do? What do they, because you got to say to everybody else in the Big Ten, nobody's above, the rules and everything. But help us understand what you think the Big Ten is hoping to accomplish here.
I think they're trying to appease every other Big Ten school, their coach, their athletic directors and presidents, who are looking at this situation saying the NCAA clearly must have enough evidence to be able to look at Michigan and claim that they've broken a rule for sportsmanship, and they should be able to be punished, but we don't want to have to wait until after the season for that to be the case. And where Jim Harbaugh, who knows what could happen? He could go on to the NFL, and this team could go on to win a national championship. And they feel like they probably need to, listen to the rest of the Big Ten coaches out there that feel like, hey, this has been going on for a while, and we feel like, they're in the wrong here, and this needs to stop. The tough thing is it's a precedent that Tony Petitti is going to be setting now in his first year. And I think the thing where my mind wanders to is when I got drafted in the NFL in 2007. Roger Goodell took over as NFL commissioner, and there always existed this player conduct policy within the collective bargaining agreement, but no one had really enforced it the way Roger Goodell did. And I think as he enforced the player conduct policy, there are some unforeseen situations that came up that he was then going to be on the hook for and having to make decisions on, and how he's going to punish players and how one player would be compared to another. And I almost wonder if that's where the Big Ten, or in this case, Tony Petitti, is going with this, where he's going to open up a bunch of other potential issues where if anything happens to a Big Ten team, do they have the investigative arm to be able to look through this and come up with a decision that's not going to somehow end up in the courts? And I think the other thing is, it sounds like, at least from what the Big Ten stated, everything that they're basing their decision to suspend Jim Harbaugh off of was all based on an NCAA investigation, which is unprecedented. So I kind of look at this and wonder where it stops for Tony Petitti moving forward based on the punishment, not just for a head coach, but the players involved too. And also, it sounded like from their words, they're punishing Jim Harbaugh because he's the figurehead, but they don't necessarily have any direct ties to him yet outside of he was the head coach there. So it seems like there's still a lot to sort out over the course of the next few weeks, maybe even months, until we know everything. But it feels like also it could be open up Pandora's box for Tony Petitti moving forward.
Yeah, I kept saying due process, just if they're guilty, they're guilty. But now as we keep going on, and maybe this is, moved to the end of the postseason, is there a chance Michigan has to forfeit wins? If you're guilty of cheating, like what is cheating and what do you lose if that's going to – Harbaugh might be suspended for the rest of the regular season, but could they be – throwing away a couple of seasons here full of, these victory totals?
Possibly. I mean, who knows? I mean, we've seen the punishment the NCAA has handed out before. It's always kind of like retroactive. They vacate wins and take away postseasons, and it ends up hurting the current players, not the past players or coaches who was a part of whatever was going on. So it doesn't really seem just in my mind, at least. I think the interesting thing you bring up, though, is like how far does this go as far as providing Michigan an advantage? And I'm sure that opinion varies depending on the coach you talk to. There's some coaches who don't think it helps them quite as much. There's some who think it's a huge advantage. I mean, if you think about like the information they're gathering and the data, it's all, going to be applied to hopefully the right situations once you get into the game. And you're hoping that if Michigan's scouting everyone out, that everyone's using the same signals, same calls. I mean, nowadays it feels like everyone's got sign stealers that are on sidelines trying to figure that out in game. Who knows if there's other schools doing this and they just haven't been caught for doing this. And so there's just a lot of questions as to the advantage that this actually gives Michigan. And I think from a former player, what bothers me about it is it almost takes away from the success this team's had the past couple of years on the field. I mean, this team has been dominant on the, like, I'll put it this way, this past week, they didn't need to steal any signs. In fact, they didn't need to throw the football in the second half versus Penn State. They ran the ball 32 straight times. They had one pass attempt that ended up getting wiped out for DPI, and they still beat Penn State in Happy Valley.
But why do it, though, Brady? Why do you have somebody who is decoding this if it doesn't help?
That's the hard thing.
Or you don't need it.
I think, I mean, who knows, again, how long this has been going on. There's pictures of Connor Stallions on the sidelines of Michigan that predates when a lot of these allegations have been brought up. So I don't know. I mean, if you're only saying, hey, he's only been there the past 2 years, that's not the truth. He's been there before that. And so was it helping them when they weren't winning the Big Ten and they weren't having as great of an advantage? There's still so many questions. I think the reason why you do it is because, like anyone else, you're always trying to find an edge. And they probably thought this was something that, wasn't over the bounds, or if it was against the rules, maybe it was a rogue actor in this case. There's still so much we don't know in this case. So I don't want to speculate on all of it, but I would say this. I feel for the current players that are there. I think they've responded in a manner where they're like, you think we're stealing signs? Like, we'll show you. Like, we'll show you just how good we are. Connor Stallions isn't here anymore. Our head coach has been suspended earlier this year. He wasn't here for this game. We'll just keep winning football games and moving forward. So that's where my thought goes, is I'm just more concerned about the players that are involved in all this and how it impacts them moving forward.